The truth is that there is no one answer to this question of what is an INFJ like when they don't like you. I think that there's at least three different answers to this question, and I'm going to try to provide a description of those behaviors and those different responses in this video. Now, the one thing that you should know about this particular classification right off the bat is that it's partly based on the classification I offer in this book, The Infinite Soul, which is my new book on the INFJ. So, INFJ life in the modern world, how INFJs can find meaning, purpose, and rich, meaningful existence in this world today, given its challenges, given, the particular way that INFJs are made. So you can get this book, which by the way is the sequel to the Ecstatic Soul, book that many people of you have already got, but if you haven't yet, an exploration of the INFJ psyche, also the links below. Now, in this book, I offer a sort of, pragmatic classification of three subtypes of INFJ, at least from the point of view of how these INFJs behave in everyday life, right? Not so much in terms of trying to look at the cognitive function stack or the technicalities of their psyche. That's more of an ecstatic soul type of business. But in the infinite soul, more practically, okay, what are these INFJs like? And I propose that there's three main categories. The what I call the adapted submissive INFJ, the one who's always eager to please, to get along with other people. The second one is the solipsistic INFJ, the one who's actually defining herself or himself in opposition to other people. So like they really cling to their NI worldview by hook or by crook, and they refuse to interact to large extent with other people who might challenge that worldview. So they remain kind of in their own world. And the Infinite Soul, which is the title of this book, or the liberated INFJ, who's actually engaged on a path of truly finding meaning with and despite other people, and to some extent, because of course the world is a world of conflicting forces, and there's movements for you, there's movements against you, and you have to forge your own path. So I think that if an INFJ doesn't like you, this is going to a large extent going to be informed by the subtype of INFJ they are in this three-tiered classification, which is why you'll have people online tell you in videos, oh, when an INFJ doesn't like you, they make you feel like really judged, and they might say something very cutting and move on or cut you off, or but first of all, they you will feel judged by them. You'll be made to feel small by them. So you'll have videos telling you this about INFJs. Then you have videos telling you that INFJs will be very, very indirect and passive aggressive, and try to cut you off in the most subtle and discreet way possible. All right, so very, very different approach. And then you'll have people tell you as well. There's INFJs will try to make sense of your behavior. They don't like you, and mentor you so that you start aligning with their expectations of what you should be acting like in order for them to like you. So that's like three very different approaches. So one person looking at this might be tempted to say, okay, at least two of these three interpretations are not actually dealing with INFJs, because there has to be only one that's true, one of the three, right? My suggestion is that actually in these three instances, you could, not necessarily, it could be dealing with a different type, but you could well be dealing with an INFJ. But in each case, an INFJ that belongs to the subcategory I mentioned at the start. Certainly, if an INFJ doesn't like you and they belong to the adaptive category, adapted submissive is another way of putting it. So getting along with other people so that I fit in, not trying to assert my own, say the INFJ's vision, my INFJ view of things, my worldview, trying to reduce my quirkiness to a minimum so that I can fit in. These INFJs, in a sense, they make the choice of adaptation through submission. These will be passive aggressive. They will never confront you directly. They will tend to agree with you on the surface, although they will tend to look unconvinced by what you're saying. But they will, the facial expression they give you won't correspond to the words of, cautious support they give to what you're saying. Really, they're not liking you, and they will try their best to not be invited to things where you're going to be, or to not get in touch with you ever again, but they will never be confrontational about it, right? So there's a sense of vague dislike, confusion, not really being able to make sense, but not wanting to offend you. Right? They want you in their life, but they don't want you to be offended. If you're dealing with a solipsistic INFJ now, it's actually kind of more unusual, because adaptive INFJs, they're the most social of the three in some ways. They're always desperate to be social, to be accepted. Solipsistic INFJs, they're the least social of the three. So you're not likely to meet them unless, first of all, you might meet them online. That's where you're most likely to meet them. Or they could be in a job that's quite specific, and so at a work event or in a work context, you might interact with them. Now, these INFJs, they're much more cutting. So if they don't like you for whatever reason, they will tend to make you understand they don't like you. So either they will make a remark that's just very clearly indicating that they think that you're an inferior being in some way or other, a pleb or whatever that might be. Or they will just look at you very judgmentally and sometimes not even grace you with a response when you're saying something that they think is utterly stupid. And of course, goes without saying, just like the first category of INFJs, they will try not to interact with you in the future. But they'll be more cutting. And that's because they're a solipsistic kind of INFJ. They're more confrontational by nature, and there's reasons why, which you can explore in more depth in this book. Now, if you're dealing with the third category of INFJ, the Infinite Soul INFJ, the liberated INFJ, a caveat straight away that I want to suggest here is that I think there are real adaptive INFJs out there, lots of them. There are real solipsistic INFJs out there, lots of them. To say that there are lots of liberated INFJs out there is not, strictly speaking, true. It's truer to say that there's lots of people who are INFJs who are on a path of individuation toward this. But like the perfect, embodied infinite soul is kind of a goal to aspire towards rather than a real person. But, if you engage with someone INFJ who's on that path, they will be the ones that will tend to take some distance vis-a-vis the behavior that you're displaying they don't like, and think about it as, okay, so it's not wise to dislike this person and make them feel judged and make them feel disliked. So how can I integrate their behavior, which I'm not liking, within my holistic mind frame, which always going back to the holistic minds of INFJs, and integrate them within it. And usually they will have a tendency to be understanding, trying to make sense of you within a wider context. They'll be more accepting at first sight, but they will almost always try to influence you so that you change your ways as well. And that's where the mentoring comes in, right? To fit with the vision, but always within this kind of broadly accepting point of view, which is not the case of the second one, and only in a fake way the case of the first one. So that's the division between the three different responses you might get if an INFJ doesn't like you. Also have a Patreon page, guys. Down there you can join the page, support me for a small amount every month, really helps. Okay, see you next week, guys. Bye-bye.